Donald's nominations to key cabinet posts continue apace, and he approaches it with the seriousness of the unserious moron he is. Also, neo-Nazi protests and marches are on the rise. Can't imagine why. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of The Nerd Avengers. Joining me is Brian Karen, White House reporter and best-selling author. Anyway, it's good to be here while we're still in the transition period.
A lull before the storm.
Yeah, I mean, it's not much of a lull. I think part of the problem, Brian, is that too many people are getting wound up by every single thing that's getting announced. And look, I understand that a lot of it's really alarming, especially given the fact that it feels, and in some cases it's true, that our ability to maintain some semblance of democracy is reliant upon Senate Republicans. So, that's troubling. But we have to pace ourselves. And I think a lot of people are taking a step back and trying to come up with new ways of approaching this incoming second Trump administration. We cannot act like trained seals anymore, that every time, every time Donald does something outrageous or says something outrageous, or one of his minions in brown shirts does something outrageous, we can't just continue to be in a frenzy constantly. And I apologize in advance. I'm having some weird allergy. I'm very itchy. So I don't know what's going on because it's like winter outside.
Allergic to Donnie?
But, well, that goes without saying. But I want to start with something that I think is very emblematic of why the rest of us need to find a better way. This is kind of shockingly, I mean, I guess it shouldn't be shocking. But it's still grotesque. This is an actual headline on the front page of the New York Times that says, Donald recruits his season 2 cast straight from the small screen. The president-elect, who built his reputation on reality television, is rounding out his second administration with Dr. Oz, Fox News host and a former star of The Real World. Sorry, I don't do a very good annoying radio person voice. Sorry about that. I tried. So that is just the fact that they are using his framing of things to talk about a deadly serious situation in which he is literally nominating people whose job it's going to be to destroy our institutions once and for all. It's just, it is a sign of the very dangerous times in which we live. And I want to segue from there to talking about the so-called Press Act.
That's a hell of a segue.
It is a hell of a segue. I mean, we can kill some of the press. Because Donald wants to. Sorry. Well, that is not what I meant.
I know what you meant. Don't worry.
The Press Act is something that is designed to protect journalists from government spying and being thrown in jail without cause. Donald wants to kill the act, and I think that some media outlets, we would be well served by no longer having them around, is what I meant. Hello, Waj, editor of The Left Hook Substack and co-host of Democracy-ish on Mary Trap Media. Waj, we hope you're feeling better. I'm glad you got some rest. You look good.
Thank you. I mean, it's still there, but apparently a little bit better. But I'm navigating my new Two-Face much better than, as Brian said, people who get this Bell's palsy. It's much better than how most people usually are. Their whole face droops. So
that's what mine did.
Yeah, so I'm actually doing much better than most. My friends didn't get that freaked out, but the eye droops. But other than that, I could still eat. It's just a little annoying. So for those who are watching for the first time, I'm not having a stroke in real time. I just had Bell's palsy 2.5 days ago randomly, and hopefully it'll get better. Send me good.
My doctor said it can be stress related. By the way, Waj.
I wonder what's.
Why don't we all have it?
It's like nothing is happening in this country. Everything is fine.
It's fine. Also, you've been traveling a lot, so a lot of, it's a virus, so that could have something to do with it as well. Okay, so the Press Act, it's that what that stands for is protect reporters from exploitative state spying, right? Yeah. And it actually passed the House unanimously.
And Republicans support it both in the House and the Senate.
Except, well, now they probably won't. And the reason, though, it's been held up is because the Senate is very dysfunctional, and the other guy, Tom Cotton,
yes,
refused to let it move forward. And now that Donald has come out against it, and Republicans in Congress seem to think that they are not a separate but co-equal branch of government, but they are there to do Donald's bidding, we're not entirely sure this bill will pass. And Brian, you know what that means.
Yeah, well, full disclosure, I helped write this damn thing, and Jamie Raskin has used my experiences as a basis for crafting it. It is the third whack at the tree trying to get this passed. And for people who don't know, it started out as a national shield law, and the shield law keeps reporters from having to give up their confidential sources so they don't, go to jail. Hello, that's where I went 4 times because I wouldn't give it up. Now, almost every state in the country has its own individual shield law or Press Act, which helps keep reporters from going to prison or going to jail if they fail to disclose confidential sources. But we do not have a national shield law. And this is the third time and by the way, the last time this was introduced, Jim Jordan and Jamie Raskin co-sponsored this. The far right wants this as much as the left and as much as the center, because the far right wants to protect their sources as well. They think the deep state has taken over the press, so they want this. And what Donald Trump doesn't want, now he's come forward and said that he wants the Republicans to reject it. And the reason why is control, because he wants to be able to jail us at will, at whim, based on whatever he wants. And by the way, he has the Supreme Court's mea culpa blessing to do whatever in the hell he wants, as long as it's an official act. This would be another step in the way of him executing total control over the press. It gives us not only the ability to protect our confidential sources, but the way this act is written, it also protects us from having our phones tapped, hacked, without, and our computers tracked and all of our activities tracked. Donald Trump wants to keep it on the basis of national security, right? That's the reason why. That's the excuse that's given. National security, you can't trust reporters. Well, you can't trust reporters if you don't, if you take away all their power to distribute information, vetted factual information. It will destroy the press, but what will creep up in its what will grow in that crack is far more cancerous than what you have in the press. So that's the bottom line about it, what it is, what it does, and why Donald doesn't want us to have it. But the thing that you have to remember is, folks, that Donald Trump also was able to kill a bill, an immigration bill, so he could run on immigration that was supported by Democrats and Republicans. This is no different, and he's got the incoming power of the presidency. And as Mary, you pointed out so well and so succinctly, there are no more co-equal branches of government. He simply wants to have all the power vested in him. It's another step towards fascism, and it's another step towards controlling the press. It's all part of a grand strategy. It's been rumored he's going to take over the assignment of of seats inside the Brady briefing room, which has always been the purview of the White House Correspondents Association, but not by any law. So Donald Trump will assign who he wants to sit in that press room and ask him questions that only he wants to answer, because he has a 27-year-old press secretary and with no experience who can't handle experienced reporters. So he's going to make it as easy as he can on her. In the meantime, they're already starting to fight the WHCA on a protective pool, the pool that covers the president 24/7. He doesn't want it. So you're seeing, before he even gets into office, the moves he's going to make to guarantee that the free press ceases to exist, despite the consternation that he and Husky Muskie have given us about First Amendment and free speech. They don't give a crap about that.
Well, watch. I mean, I think what we're learning, I shouldn't say learning because we knew this already, but what is being shoved down our throats on a daily basis is they don't care about anything they pretended to care about. And because some people didn't understand why eggs were expensive, we're looking at an administration that is designed for two purposes. And I showed this before you got here, and I want to use it as a jumping off point to the next conversation. This is an actual headline on the front page of the New York Times. And again, I'm going to read it, but this time without a ridiculous radio voice. Donald recruits his season 2 cast straight from the small screen. I mean, okay, thank you for showing us the New York Times that, you know, you're not here to frame things.
Mary.
What?
You glitched, Brian.
Yeah, you glitched. Sorry, I didn't.
I glitched. I was going to say I could have done that in the radio voice that Mary wanted,
but I decided I didn't want it. So
okay.
Anyway, so here's the New York Times saying, okay, Donald, we'll take whatever framing you offer us.
Yep.
So people aren't going to understand just how dangerous, even if some of them are absurd, they're all dangerous.
That's right.
Because in addition to Gaetz, which we'll talk about further in a different context later in the show, and Hegseth, both alleged sexual assaulters being nominated for extraordinarily powerful and important positions. We've got Linda McMahon of World Wrestling as Secretary of Education, Mehmet Oz, grifter and snake oil salesman, as Secretary of Medicaid and Medicare, who would also oversee parts of the Affordable Care Act and be responsible for 50% of Americans' healthcare, or I should say the healthcare of 50% of Americans, and on and on and on. Kennedy as at Health and Human Services, Nome at the Department of Homeland Security, etc. So it's almost like we're being told, or not we, but you know, people in general are being told, yeah, it's just part of the same joke. It's not to be taken seriously, and it's just appalling.
You know, I'm terrible at self-promoting, but I just wrote an article last night on my Substack called "The Donald's Extremely Incompetent Cabinet: DEI for White Supremacy." And I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but I went down and I just gave an example of several of his cabinet picks. Number one, if you notice with MAGA and Republicans in particular, it's all projection. So everything they accuse us of doing, they're actually doing, right?
Yeah.
Nancy Mace, for example, she's protecting women. How is she protecting women? By going after Sarah McBride and completely ignoring Matt Gaetz' sexual assault, right?
Well, why don't I play that clip? Because I think it's important for context. It's one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. So brace yourselves, everybody. And then you can continue on the other side.
The country.
Yeah, but are you going after a marginalized person here?
Sarah McBride doesn't get a say in this. This is a biological man trying to force himself into women's spaces, and I'm not going to tolerate it. You have the radical left that are trying to erase women and erase women's rights. I'm the first woman to graduate from the Citadel, the military college of South Carolina. If some guy in a skirt came by and said, no, that's my achievement, I'm going to be there and standing in the way and saying, hell no. I'm not going to allow men to erase women or women's rights. And I'm going to be standing up here. I will file this again next congressional session. Sarah McBride doesn't get a say. This is about women. This is about girls. This is about our rights and being protected in our private spaces. I don't want to see a man in a women's restroom. That's not a thing. And it's not going to be a thing up here. It's not going to be a thing anywhere across the country.
It's not a thing anywhere.
Okay, she's so vile, but also except for the rights of bodily autonomy and reproductive health care. Those rights we can give away, just not. Yeah, go ahead.
She hasn't said a word against Matt Gaetz. She hasn't said a word against Hexa. She hasn't said a word against RFK. She hasn't said a word about the men that she promotes who bragged about grabbing women by the penis, how liable for assault against E. Jean Carroll. It's all projection. It's all hypocrisy. Many of them are inexperienced, incompetent. Matthew Whitaker, the person that he has tapped to be a NATO ambassador, he was notorious for auditioning for the role of Attorney General on Fox. That's how he temporarily got the job. Has no experience in foreign policy, no experience in security. He's the man who, before he came into public service, created toilets for well-endowed men. Now you do a compare and contrast. I did in my piece, I just for the heck of it, I did compare and contrast with all the people that Donald brought in versus Biden's picks, right? Biden's pick for NATO ambassador is a woman who speaks 3 languages, has been trained in foreign policy, extremely educated. Linda McMahon, another woman engaged in a sex abuse scandal with her husband, Vince McMahon, right now, lied about her education degree. He has tapped her to be the Secretary of Education. Donald Trump's last Secretary of Education was Betsy DeVos, who said she wants to destroy the Department of Education and has no degree in education. Miguel Cardano, who is the current Secretary of Education, his entire career is in education. He started off as a 4th grade teacher, right? So what do we see here, Mary? We see the only qualification for Donald Trump's cabinet, as he said when he came to choosing Matthew Whitaker, he's a patriot and he's loyal. It's about loyalists to Donald Trump, number one, first and foremost. And as we know from the first term, if you ain't loyal enough, and he doesn't like you, he gets rid of you. A lot of these folks who are coming in, they ain't gonna last till 2026. Number two, what we see is it's like 1984. War is peace.
Yeah.
Up is down. All
Freedom
these
is slavery.
Yeah, freedom is slavery. All these people that he has chosen, for the overwhelming majority, the ones who are ideologues, actually want to destroy the department that they're leading. So Betsy DeVos wanted to crush the Department of Education. Republicans have always wanted to destroy it ever since Brown versus Board of Education. Lee Zeldin, the head of the EPA, does not believe in climate change. What do you think he wants to do with the EPA?
Nominate. Let's.
Nominate. Sorry.
Okay.
Matt Gaetz, the only reason why Donald Trump is all in on Matt Gaetz, despite the fact that it's a huge blowback and it's already a big mark on his presidency that has not begun, is because he'll be a loyalist, a true believer who will subvert all rules and norms to use the Department of Justice to crush all of his enemies, right? So what we're looking at is not just the most inexperienced, not just loyalists to Donald Trump and not the Constitution. We're looking at grifters, sexual assaulters, and people, Mary, who are complicit in a fascist takeover of the government and a long-term desire to crush the government. That's why I don't laugh that much about this, especially when I look at the when I look at the doctors. If you just look at all the doctors, the medical experts that he's picked, going from RFK down, that to me right now, Mary, is one of the scariest cabinet picks, because these people are all cranks, conspiracy theorists, anti-vaxxers. And just to give people an example, we laugh about RFK. When Samoa took RFK's advice on smallpox, over 80 people died 5 years ago, most of them children, from a smallpox explosion. Now imagine RFK being the head of Health and Human Services during a time of climate change, new COVID variants. He's anti-vaccine, measles and rubella are already spiking. Before the pandemic, the last thing I'll say, before the pandemic, the World Health Organization said that vaccine hesitancy was a top 10 threat before the pandemic. Mary, what is going to happen? Polio, whooping cough, measles, rubella are all going to spike. Literally, our kids are going to die. So people laugh about this. I know we can laugh about it a little bit because it's so absurd. But after you get your quick chuckle in, think about how disastrous this will be for our health, for our economy, for the government, for democracy, for the rule of law. And there are no guardrails left anymore. And so, you can sit there and go, it's casting season. But for the love of God, corporate media, connect the dots. You failed to connect the dots when it came to tariffs. And after you got elected, you're like, but the tariffs are inflationary. And guess who won't pay for them? The foreign company. So anyway, that's my rant.
Yeah, and listen, and it was measles that killed 80-something people on Samoa. And I think because at least smallpox has been eradicated, but I'm sure, we're going to look to make smallpox great again. But just I think it's an important distinction because we know that measles, especially if in adults, can be fatal, but do we even, we've had the MMR vaccine forever. So like, who even thinks about this stuff anymore? So I think one of the problems is that people don't understand nobody voted to have all of our vaccines taken away. So people aren't going to understand the implications of this. And it does not help that we have Democratic politicians making Kennedy seem reasonable in any way, shape, or form. I want to put this up. This is a tweet from Jared Polis, who is the governor of Colorado. Kennedy helped. Okay, I'm excited by the news that Donald will appoint Kennedy to Health and Human Services. Kennedy helped us defeat vaccine mandates. Like, is that a good thing? Oh my God. In Colorado in 2019, and will help America make America healthy again by shaking up HHS and FDA. I hope he leans into personal choice on vaccines rather than bans, which I think are terrible. But what I'm most optimistic about is taking on big pharma and corporate AG oligopoly to improve your health. Before you mock him or disagree, I want to share with you. Yeah, I don't want to hear what you have to say anymore, Jared Polis. And then there's Cory Booker, who took it's not the same thing, but here's Cory Booker's tweet. For years, I've been raising the alarm of the dangers of our current food system. We're prioritizing corporations feeding us unhealthy products instead of family farmers growing fresh, healthy food. And we let many dangerous chemicals flood our system. We all must come together to build a system that works for all. Kennedy retweeted Booker. I don't believe that this was an endorsement of Kennedy, but at the same time, okay, it's like saying Hitler was a vegetarian and liked dogs. It's not, you cannot make somebody like Kennedy
But did he eat them?
seem reasonable, right? Or bears for that matter, seem reasonable because yes, of course, one or two of his positions. Is he the only person on the planet who comes out against big pharma? I mean, there are people infinitely more qualified who also believe in vaccinating our children and not letting them die needless, painful deaths. So, Brian, before I hand it off to you, I just want to show you this from Bill Nye, who said, I think Kennedy has lost his way. His other claims are extraordinary, and I really hope someone will reconsider his position. I was kind of hoping Bill Nye would be a little bit more, I don't know, over the top, dramatic, and ringing a little more alarm bells. Like, when he talked about climate change, like he sets things on fire to get people to understand what's going on. Like, can he do something a little bit more powerful in his denunciation of Kennedy? But the point, of course, is, Brian, is that there's so much bad that people, with the help of corporate media, are only going to be paying attention to the top centimeter of what's going on, the clown show of it all, the ridiculous of it all, the WWE and NASCAR of it all. And I worry that by picking two guys who are just as bad as everybody else, but worse in a very specific, visible way, the sex assaulters, allegedly, Gaetz and Hegseth, that Republicans are just going to be like, well, we stood up to him on these two things, so let's let everybody else in, no matter what, including Putin's girlfriend, Tulsi Gabbard, to be in charge of all of our intelligence agencies.
Well, let's see. To unpack it succinctly, let me just say a broke clock can be right twice a day, but it's still a broke clock. So RFK is a broke clock. So he stumbled across, or a blind pig can find a truffle. He's a blind pig. Careful, he's got a worm in his head, and somebody's going to eat the bar. So at the end of the day, he got to go. But to the bigger point, and what we started out talking with, do you see a pattern here? What we started talking about was, the fact that Donald Trump wants to squelch free press. And this is what you get when you have a press that is controlled by a small number of people trying to get a great deal of an audience in order to make gigantic profits. And Donald Trump likes that, so he can control it. And this is why you get the prurience. That's why you get the sideshow antics. That's why you get the, hey, look, here it is. It's, it's a clown car, folks. Well, yeah. But, the thing I like best that I saw Vice President Harris say at the Democratic National Convention was he's an unserious man, and it portends serious repercussions. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what is on tap. Donald Trump.
Sorry, I have breaking news.
I didn't break it. It wasn't me.
Gaetz is out.
Gaetz is.
Gee,
there's a shock.
I'm going to read this. I had excellent meetings with senators yesterday. I appreciate the thoughtful feedback and the incredible support of so many.
Meetings.
While the momentum was strong, it's clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the transition. There's no time to waste on needlessly protracted Washington scuffle. Thus, I'll be withdrawing my name from consideration to serve as Attorney General. Donald's DOJ must be in place and ready on day one. I remain fully committed to see that Donald is the most successful president in history. I will be forever honored that he nominated me to lead the Department of Justice, and I'm certain he will save America for oligarchs. Okay, I added the last two words, but okay, Waj, you surprised?
Well, wait a minute. Can I just tell you one thing? What that tells you is that report on the ethics committee is coming out.
Yeah.
And he's getting ahead of it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's exactly it. He is only resigning because they thought they could bury the report. And now they realize that the report is out, and they realize that someone has the ability to leak it and most likely will leak it. And if it gets leaked, it will hurt him, but also hurt Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is probably like, I got your back. I'll help you out on the DL. Go back to Florida, be my henchman, and, wink, wink. But the only reason he did that, folks, is the report must be utterly damning. And what we found out in the last couple of days is that he spent like thousands of dollars, actually more than $10,000 on public Venmo payments to these women. So it's like they're not even good criminals. That's the worst part. It's like we're being run by dumb criminals. If we were being run by like Lex Luthor, at least Lex Luthor was competent. If you read the comic books.
Or Nixon.
These are like incompetent, anti-science, anti-intellectual villains who are just like the worst grifters. It's like your cousin Sal, who just like keeps effing up, and like someone says, you should be president of the United States. He's like, really? Okay, I have good ideas. And he goes and gets high and goes robs a liquor store and then stumbles into the Oval Office. And then he's like, I have an idea for the Secretary of Defense and Attorney General. It's my buddy, Chip.
Whippets.
Yeah. Chip comes in like sniffing glue. He's like, huh? So it's like the scene from Idiocracy, which I know I'm bringing up a lot, but if you ever seen that scene, is where the smartest man on earth, who is the man with the medium IQ, wakes up in the future, and now he becomes the smartest man on earth because everyone breeds and becomes stupid, and they make him president because he has an IQ of like 80, and he looks at his cabinet. And his cabinet are all these like just hooligans and idiots and morons. That reminds me, it's like an amazing scene. Go check it out. You'll sit there and you'll cry because it's hilarious, but
There's a great line from that. There's a great line from that. It's evolution does not necessarily reward intelligence. With no natural predators to thin the herd, it began to simply reward those who reproduced the most and left the intelligent to become an endangered species.
It's exactly that. And there's one good news, though. I mean, temporary good news. Thank God that he's out. Thank God that because he is so dangerous. Now the question is, which disciplined reek and loyalist will he put in?
Right. Well, I mean, to the point of this stupidity, I think this is worth showing people because it's just painfully stupid. He wrote a check made out to cash, and in the memo line, tuition reimbursement.
I love it.
Sure.
Amazing.
Sure. So I think though, it's intentional, right? It is normalizing it's normalizing their way of doing things, right? It's like that's why Donald is picking sexual assaulters, known sexual assaulters, and we better see that report. I swear, if they say, "Oh, we don't need to see it now because he withdrew his nomination," no, that's not how this works. But how do you? I mean, there are Republicans say, well, Donald's an adjudicated rapist. How can we complain about what Hegseth and Gaetz did and Kennedy? And I mean, there are like a bunch of alleged sexual assaulters among these nominees. So I think it's all intentional, and I think it's also, we've talked about this before. Like Gaetz is sort of the canary in the coal mine, or actually, that's the wrong analogy. He is the person who is going to represent how much Donald can get away with, and how far he can push the envelope. How many senators were on board with him, and how many aren't, and how does he? All right, as Waj said, Gaetz withdrew. Who's going to be next? Because there are plenty of people who will do exactly what Gaetz would have done, who just don't have the baggage, right? Like for example, Hegseth is terrible, but I think there's a possibility, and we're learning more about how terrible the accusations against him are. But he served for 20 years in uniform. There are plenty of Republicans who are going to give him a pass because of that, even though he's still deeply, deeply unqualified, and he's a loyalist.
Well, I think to reach out and find out who his next AG is going to be, we need to turn on Fox and find out who's looking for a job who has a legal background. I'd say Steve Bannon, Jason Miller would be at the top of the list.
But Brian, remember, I mean, I don't want to interrupt you, but that's exactly how Matthew Whitaker got the job briefly.
Yes,
literally
that's what
CNN and
this isn't, I mean, Fox News has replaced the FBI as the vetting property counsel for who's going to, be nominated to the Supreme Court or anything else. So I would say that you'd have to go and look and see who's the, who's the sitting lawyer on Fox News and figure it out. And whoever the best talking head is there will probably be the next one to be nominated. But whoever it is, again, this is part and parcel of Donald Trump. Remember, in the first administration, I talked to many members of the cabinet who said, listen, this was on background. I'm not giving him stuff to sign because I don't trust him, and I don't want him to sign certain things into as an executive order. This time around, by putting loyalists where he wants them, they will bring him those pieces of paper that he wants him to sign. He will write an executive order. It may go to court, and then the Supreme Court's going to back him up. So this is all part and parcel. He's going to find someone, especially the head of the AG, because he does want to use the DOJ, the FBI, to go after his political opponents. And that is not going to change. The face may change. It will be someone else who's more palatable and at the same time probably a little bit more dangerous, because of all the things that Matt Gaetz is, smart ain't one of them. Just take a look at the check. So that's where you're going there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think intelligence has anything to, Donald's not smart either, but I think it's just a question of, you're right though, but the person in charge doesn't need to be. The person in charge needs to be the person who will do whatever he or she is told to do.
Right.
And there will be minions who actually understand how the system works. So they can help bring it down from within. Just as Mitch McConnell has been doing with the Senate for decades. I have a question for you guys though. Like, why aren't the Democrats in the Senate doing their own background checks? Like, why are they like, oh yeah, okay, you want to skirt? They do.
They do. But what you're seeing is, you're not going to see a Democrat release some of this ethics stuff like for Gaetz. You're not going to see the Democrats go over the top in the Senate and do those type of things because of, I don't know, there's this thing called the rule of law. And the Democrats want to.
Is there?
Yeah, that's to them. Yeah, they still. But what you will see is a Republican who doesn't like Matt Gaetz releasing that ethics report. And
I'm not talking about the ethics report.
Under the guise of something else. And over in the Senate, you will see Republicans. The Democrats could pass things on to the Republicans who are much more proficient at releasing that type of information if they want to than the Democrats. Look, don't fool yourselves. The Democrats and the Republicans in the Senate and the House play a vicious game with each other, and they give a little to get a little. So the Democrats, while they do those type of investigations, they also work, as much as we hear about them can't standing each other in public. They still share office space. They still share the Capitol together, and they still work together.
Okay. I mean, I don't know that answers the question. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what's.
No, they're look. The thing is, they're not built for this fight.
Right. Well, yes. I think that is the unfortunate answer.
No, I mean, they're not made.
That's a short answer, but you're right. They're not built for it.
They're not made for the current Democratic leadership. I was thinking about this last night, right? If the shoe was on the other foot, we've talked about this on your show many times. They're not made for this moment. They're not built for this fight. I mean, just look at Durbin. Just look at the lack of passion, lack of energy. Just look at him, and then compare AOC last night with him. AOC stood outside in front of like her own press gaggle and made a spontaneous defense of Sarah McBride, but couched it as a defense of women, and also talked about like how disgusting it is what the Republicans are doing, and then connected the dots and said what Republicans want to do is check the genitalia of each person that they don't think is feminine enough. It was like 3 minutes, very powerful, showed passion, connected the dots. Where is that fight? Even in the public, Mary, where is that fight? Where is the current leadership fighting, creating the narrative, connecting the dots, showing passion? Nowhere. Durbin doesn't have
they work together too much.
I know that's right. So that old way, and I'm not saying old as a pejorative, that old way of buddy, you're my friend, you're my pal, Schumer, Durbin, even Pelosi, Biden, let's drink rum. That's not the way to get it done. You're seeing people like Mace use social media and others come out ahead. And a data just came out, a fascinating data point. The reason why Trump won is he won with less engaged voters. People who didn't vote in 2020, 2022, people who listen to podcasts and social media are the ones who came out in this election and gave him the election. What they're saying is, in the long run, this is bad for Republicans if these voters get like depressed. But he won over these folks who don't know any better. So if you're unwilling to even play hardball, hold hearings. You have the Senate. You have the Senate majority. They should hold hearings. Hold hearings over Hexeth. Hold hearings over RFK. They could do this. They have 2 months left. Biden come out and say something. They're all checked out. They've all given up. They're all, as Brian said, they're all in the DL, making these deals, saying, hey, don't touch me. But no one's really fighting. And the people who are fighting, like Jasmine Crockett and AOC, are being sidelined. I thought Crockett would have been amazing, but Debbie Dingell won. So Dems are screwed for the next 2 or 4 years.
Did you really? Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, in fairness, the Senate Democrat, I mean, I'm not excusing them at all, and I agree with you, but they are also getting judges approved. So that's
that's
the one thing that's really important.
But as a reminder to what Waj is saying, there was a time, right, when George Bush Jr. was in office. The last 2 months of his administration, the Democrats tried to impeach him, and they held hearings. Knowing full well that he was leaving office, they still took the symbolic stance to, because they were trying to, based on a book written by the same guy who wrote Helter Skelter, it was a book called Prosecution of George W. Bush for Murder, showing how the link between George W. Bush and unwanted and unnecessary and criminal deaths in the Middle East. So that was a thing, man. I was there. They had votes. It was in committee. It went to the full floor, and then of course they tried to push it out as fast as they could, and they couldn't. But they made the effort. Today, you won't see that kind of effort because the Dick Durbins of the world. And look, I don't use old as pejorative either, but damn it, you need new leadership.
Outmoded. How about outmoded?
Yeah, and well, at least you know what? Here's a recommendation for everybody who wants to be a Senate or House leader in the Democratic Party. Spend a weekend at Walmart. Just look and see who the American. That is Donald Trump. That's you can say a lot of things about MAGA members, but I'll guarantee you most of them are at Walmart. You need to go and
you think Republican senators are at or Donald is ever at Walmart? Come on.
No, but their supporters are. and the Republicans have tapped into that mindset is all I'm saying. If you want to see that mindset of where you need to go with your leadership, go. And for the love of God, Democrats, step up your game, because the leadership, there are people who are definitely wanting and needing it in this country. And the Democrats aren't supplying it, and they should, to Waj's point.
But Mary, you know what you said? You know how you said it's this is what makes it so infuriating. Republicans have run a type of bullshit campaign where the emperor has no clothes, right? It's someone wrote this article, which I thought was hilarious, is the GOP fights against the establishment by helping billionaires. That's the truth. But that's the story that's the truth. But the story they sell to their public is the Democrats are the elitists. We're here for you. We care about your guns. We care about God. We care about your children. They don't care about you. We go talk to Theo Von and Joe Rogan. We go to UFC and WWE. We eat steak and McDonald's. They eat, like fromage. That's what they're called, cheese. We don't eat cheese. We eat Velveeta. It's all BS. And the guy that they have put their hopes on is a man born on third base, but thought he woke up with a triple, Donald, who was given hundreds of millions of dollars from his father and lives in Mar-a-Lago. And wants you can bash your head in at the disconnect, but nonetheless,
that's classism. That's true.
That's the story that they said. And so I agree with what Brian is saying is the reason why, and I think this is how Democrats have a way out is with an AOC, right? I'm just giving an example. Why were there so many Trump voters? I don't know if we discussed this last time, but Trump voters went for AOC and Donald Trump in 2024. And they also did the same thing for Bernie in 2016 and 2020.
Yes.
It's because the message that they give authentically is we're of the people against the 1%. And we will fight for you, and the system is broken. Then you have people like Schumer and Pelosi, and God bless them, they're doing a lot of good stuff in Durban. They're so entrenched within the system and the establishment for both good and bad that they don't come off as authentic. And then they're like, we'll just play by the rules. We'll just play by the rules. And Jon Stewart had a great segment a couple of days ago. I don't know if you all saw, but it's one of his best segments in a long time where he begs Democrats to forgive me for saying this, finger bang the donut hole. He says just get it through. And he shows a donut and he says play hardball. They don't care. If Republicans are fine with inciting a violent insurrection, I think Democrats can leak a Matt Gaetz report, folks.
Yeah.
Of course, exactly. Play a hardball, but it seems like we're dealing with a multifactorial problem. One is that, all right, the Republicans are now the party of the working people across races, right? I got this. I don't know who wrote this. So whoever you are, I apologize. I don't mean to steal it, but it's good information. So thank you for letting me use it. And hopefully I'll figure out who you are. Republicans have been, quote unquote, listening to working people. And here's what they want to do. Keep the minimum wage at $7.25. Weaken unions. Raise prices for everyone through insane tariffs. Strip 30 million people of health insurance. Cut taxes on the wealthy. Again, deport tens of millions of quote-unquote working people. Also, Republicans have been quote-unquote listening to working people and giving them 3 recessions in a row, historic economic shocks, hundreds of thousands of dead due to COVID, more dead kids in schools, a faster warming planet, a rising crime rate, overdose deaths, and the short end of every fucking stick. So the disconnect between who's for whom and who's against whom and who's actually championing whom is so, it feels unbridgeable. And I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, this whole idea that the Democrats are snobs, right? We're just elitist snobs. And I don't know, maybe I'm an elitist snob. I still want all Republicans to have health care and childcare. And I still want their children to be safe at school. And I want them to get good educations and stuff. But the difference is I don't care if people like NASCAR or MMA. Good for you. I mean, you can do that. We all have our hobbies. What I object to. So we get painted as these elitist snobs, and then they want to turn everything into NASCAR. They want everything, including our government, to be WWE. And it's so who's the snob here? Who's the elitist who thinks that your way of doing things is the only way of doing things? Sorry, that is. Plus, of course, and we see this with Mace. Hang on, Brian. I'm almost done. Okay. We see this with Mace. They won, and they are still the most aggrieved, whiny, dangerous people on the planet, because it is, not to quote myself, it is never enough.
Yeah. Let me just, Mary, I love you, but you're not right. You're not an elitist, and you don't come across as an elitist.
From their perspective.
Don't let them frame the argument. That's the point.
I agree with you. I'm just saying that's their framing.
I wouldn't even put their framing out on. What I would say is, this is the truth. Donald Trump and his people are grifters. We are the people that we are of the people. We're not enemies of the people. We are the people. I'm sorry, Donald Trump is a grifter. I'm sorry, Donald Trump is a criminal. I'm sorry. Every time the
don't apologize.
Every time, yes, don't apologize for a damn thing. You think that they're for you? Let me tell you what they're doing to you. And that's what Wise was saying about why AOC and Bernie Sanders they did not take that framing. They painted themselves as of the people. The reason why the Democrats get that thing about elitism is the first thing they do, most of them, is accept the frame that the Republicans put out there, and then they try to talk
away. As does legacy and traditional media.
Yes, well, that's back to the first conversation that we were having about the press and why we suck. But at the end of the day, it's about how you frame the argument. And damn it, the Democrats have got to own. They are the party of the people. They do you don't have to apologize for it. Just explain to them, look, I shop at Walmart. Look, I like NASCAR. Look, I like WWE. But damn it, I'm in the damn trenches fighting this fight with you. We are fighting together against the rich. This is a game of the rich against the poor. They're going to get us fighting about everything: religion, sexuality, men and women, black and white, to do anything to keep taking away the money and go into the bank. And until we nail that, we're going to continue to have that problem.
And Waj, it's just because of so much of this is driven by corporate media normalization of Donald, because for reasons that are beyond my imagining, he was allowed again to cast himself as the outsider, even though, I mean, Jesus Christ, he's like been leading American politics for 9 years now. And Kamala Harris, a black woman, was seen as the corporatist, elitist, the middle of the road Dem. The Overton window just keeps shifting, putting us at a greater and greater disadvantage.
Putin, that's why I said Putin won the information war without firing a bullet.
Yeah.
So much of this is propaganda. The right wing has done a 40-year campaign on it. Roger Ailes knew about it. Roger Ailes said that if he had Fox, Nixon would have won. Steve Bannon 10 years ago said something which I've been trying to quote because he understood it. He goes, my enemy is not the Democrats. The enemy is the media.
Yep.
Now they dominate podcasts. They dominate with Sinclair Broadcasting. They dominate local news channels. They dominate with Fox. With the FCC head, you see them already bending the knee. MSNBC might be gone. You see Hollywood bending the knee already. Sebastian Stan, who was the lead actor in The Apprentice playing Donald Trump just 2 days ago, said that, Variety, the magazine, does this this show for YouTube, actor on actor. So it's like two actors interviewing each other with their career. Sebastian Stan said his publicist could not find a single actor to do actor on actor in this past week because everyone's terrified. Everyone's bending the knee. All of social media right now, Twitter is run by Musk. You got Facebook bending the knee. You got Bezos bending the knee. So they have won and conquered and dominated the information war. It's about the story that you tell. The reason why Obama was able to break through is after 8 years of effing around, enough white people in this country are like, oh shit, George W. Bush told a bullshit story and I'm pissed off. Let's vote for a black Muslim. And then Obama came in and people laughed at it, but it was really powerful. What was Obama's message? We all remember it. Hope, change. What does it mean? Whatever you want it to mean. Just like MAGA. His face on the cover of the poster, hope, change, and he embodied the story of America's promise. Trump comes in with a bullshit story that he has manufactured his entire career. This Art of the Deal Apprentice, that I am the fixer. I am the Midas touch. And he has so penetrated that story into the consciousness of America that when I saw Home Alone 2, when we see Donald all of a sudden talk to Kevin, Macaulay Culkin's character, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Even though this man was bankrupt, incompetent, that's the story he sold. With Fox and with Idiocracy, these elitists, these groomers, these sexual assaulters, these wealthy millionaires have sold a story that they are the voice of grievance and anger. and Democrats are the voice of the elite. Then you have people like Schumer and old timers come in who can't speak the lingo, dressing in their suits, refusing to stop shaking the hand of the establishment and the corporations that, let's be honest, have screwed the rest of us. So Republicans come in and talk against the elite, they win. Drink a beer, NASCAR. There's a way out. The way out is if Democrats, I'm not a Bernie bro, but just look at where we are right now. Bernie had the message, but he can't tell a story. Okay, that's Bernie. sorry, Bernie fans. He's terrible at telling a story.
You got that one right.
You take the message. I think Elizabeth Warren in 2020, I really liked her. She refined the message with actual policies, right? Then you take the message with the policies, you put it into a story, and you have an authentic AOC type messenger. They can run the tables. Good guy, the rest of us, the workers, the people working 2 jobs just to stay broke, the bad guy, the 1%, the millionaires, the establishment, the obstacle. They control everything. We have to reform it. Power to the people, equity. Everyone has an opportunity. I'm telling you, folks, there's a reason why there are Bernie, AOC, Trump voters. You can peel them off. And once these guys F up, and Mary, you, me, Brian know, Donald and his gang of cronies are going to F up in 2 months. They're going to F up. Yep. It's not even going to be like George W.
on that. I'm giving it 10 days, but
yeah, it's not going to be 6-7 years. This F up's going to come hard. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of buyer's remorse. I already see buyer's remorse with some Donald voters. This is the way forward. But the question is, Mary, will Democrats give up the establishment? Will they give up the wealthy white donors? And right now, if you see them, they're like, identity politics cost us. Like, no. So I don't know.
That's actually a really good segue to my in other news, which I haven't done in a while. Speaking of identity politics, which is, by the way, only the right traffic's in. We've been told that Donald has his fingers on the pulse of a multiracial coalition across the country. And here's his cabinet. Okay, we've got, as a U.S. population, there are 30% white men. His nominees are 68% white men. The country's 51% women. Only 20% of his nominees are women. The country's 40% people of color. Only 16% people of color nominees. The country is 12% black. Zero black people have been nominated in positions, and yet 12% of those nominees are men credibly accused of sexual assault. Way to go. I mean, it's just incredible. I don't know why I don't have the image here, but there's a picture of all of them, and it's like blindingly white.
That's a nice snapshot that go on the walls at Shawshank Prison.
Mary, Tim Scott got engaged to a real life human woman, and he still didn't get anything.
Tim Scott, Byron Douglas, whatever his name is.
Byron Donalds,
who by the way, is now promoting Lara to be the next senator from the really not great state of Florida. I mean, it's just these people will stop at nothing. And
Mary, can I promote you? We have 42,000 people watching, which means more and more people have actually watched and stayed with us. We started with 8,000. As the hour has gone off, it's 42,000. Thank you all for joining us. If you're joining us for the first time, please know that Mary Trump Media is independent. Mary started in the summer. For those who don't know, we're all on Inshallah money. This is a startup. So everyone thinks we're wealthy, but we're not. Mary, everyone thinks she's wealthy. She's had her struggles. So Brian's the only wealthy one. But all of us have, Roxanne sings 2,000 are watching. We're also on Twitter. So the total viewers, Roxanne right now, are 42,000 from multiple streams. We started this in the summer, knowing full well that corporate media would bend the knee. And we are sustained purely by your support. So some people gave $10 today, $5 today goes a really long way. And for those who are watching right now, if you haven't done this, please right now press subscribe on the YouTube channel to Mary Trump. Press like on this video. The elves in the computer, this is what they like, and this is what promotes us. And then once this comes out, please share it. And all of that, inshallah, will help us get to a monetizing part of this. Mary's almost there. And I think, Mary, do you have 200,000? subscribers?
Not yet. That is our next goal.
Oh,
We're
yeah,
very
well,
close. We're at
194?
193.
We
193.
got to get to 200.
Yeah, let's
There
try
you
to get to 200 by Thursday. And just as a reminder, first of all, thank you, Waj, for doing that better than I ever could. Also, subscribing is free. It doesn't cost you guys anything. It's just about moving us up in the algorithm and getting us, more eyeballs. So we get more people coming in and watching. So as Waj said, every little bit helps. We're trying to expand and bring on new nerds and bring on new shows. And, that takes infrastructure, which we're still in the process of building. So every bit helps. Again, thank you so much, Mary Sue. That's awesome.
Hey,
And again, to all of we're at 194. Thank you, Susan. And to everybody who gives us donations, that's phenomenal. Subscriptions help as well. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you to our moderators for keeping. Thank you, Knight Rider, for keeping everything civil. And this community is amazing. Thank you, NC Thorne. And we will see you all
Canada.
Thursday. Thank you, Canada. Hello, Canada. We love Canada. We may be moving there soon.
Canada.
No, we won't, because we're not allowed to, because President Trudeau doesn't want us there. But anyway, we'll be back Thursday. We've got lots of videos coming up in the meantime. Brian, Waj, always a pleasure to see you. Waj, feel better and please get some rest. We'll see you live here Thursday, 12 noon. In the meantime, please stay safe and be kind to everybody, including yourselves.
Isn't
Bye,
this
guys.
Thursday?